Okay, so how many people have heard the saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again? Most people say they will try, but you can't try. You either do it or you don't. Trying is not an action. You can't try. We call this idea of doing or not doing the point of power, and you're either above or below the point. Below the point, people do three things. What do? Call out the first one here for me. Yes, they blame. And who do people blame? Anyone they possibly can. The government, their mother-in-law, their staff, their competition. Everyone do this for me. Raise your hand and point your finger at me as if you're blaming me. Like this. So, how many fingers on your hand are pointing back at you? Three. Isn't that interesting? So what does that say about who had the bigger control over that situation? The next thing people do below the point of power is what? Call that out for me. Yeah, they make excuses. How many of you know kids that are experts at giving excuses? And I wonder where they learned that from, right? The last thing people do below the point of power is live in a state of denial. These people think that they're rock stars, but they're toxic and need to be removed from the organization. Notice that blame, excuses, and denial can be summed up as bed. Those people stay trapped in the proverbial bed of life. Now, above the point of power, notice that ownership, accountability, and responsibility can be summed up as oar. So people take the oar of life and chart their own course. They do this by being responsible for the situations they find themselves in, being accountable for the decisions that they make and the circumstances that they're in, and taking ownership for those situations. So you can either choose to be powerless, living below the point of power, or powerful, living above the point of power. Nobody else has this control over you. It's your daily choice. So can I get an agreement that everyone's willing to play above the point of power, at least for today? Fantastic. Thank you. Now, even when we know about the point of power and being below and above the point of power, and we've made a decision that we're going to live above the point of power, there's going to be times where we're not perfect. And I remember one day I was in a meeting and became very frustrated with a comment that was made. I excused myself from the meeting, walked to my office, packed up my stuff, went out to my car, and started driving home. And then as I was driving home, I started reflecting on, how was I gonna explain this to my wife? And I decided that that wasn't going to go over well, so I did a U-turn, went back to work, walked back into the office with my tail between my legs, and excused myself for stepping out. And fortunately, I was able to keep my job. So my point of sharing that is that we're not going to be perfect. We're going to find ourselves dipping below the point of power. The important thing is to realize when that happens and then make the best next decision to get back above the point of power. We may not always be able to do that on our own. We may have to have people in our life to point out those things for us, whether that's a coach, an accountability partner, our spouse, a significant other, a best friend. We want to make sure we surround ourselves with people that help pull us out of being powerless.